All right, welcome, guys. We have a special edition of Seven Figure Seller Summit. I'm proud to have my good friend Mike Michelini with us here today. How's it going, Mike? Welcome.
Good, Gary. Thanks for having me. It's always fun to get to catch up, share
Yes,
with you.
excellent. Yes, for sure, for sure. Today we have a special training. Mike is actually based in Thailand, Chiang Mai, and then he's been doing a lot of sourcing from Thailand. I know that not too many people, if anybody, is talking about this. And when he was sharing some details, I was really fascinated. That's why I thought it would be great to bring him on to share some of his actual real deal experiences. And it's almost like a live case study, right? So today we're going to dive into balancing two supply chains. We're going to talk about Thailand and we're going to compare and contrast with China. And then this will be very useful for you if you are an Amazon FBA seller, or if you're an e-commerce entrepreneur, or if you're someone just interested in learning more about sourcing from Thailand. I know there's a lot of different businesses out there. So a quick intro of Mike. Mike Michelini is the founder and host of the Global from Asia podcast, and he was based in China, Greater China, Hong Kong for many years. And he also is the organizer at the Cross Border Summit, which is coming up in Thailand in just a few months. So before we get started, Mike, who is this training for today and why is this so important?
Sure. Thanks for a kind intro, Gary. Basically, I think we got to hedge our bets a little bit. I think China, of course, is very important. You and I both have great memories, relationships there, business there. But I think we all need to, call it China plus one, from trade wars to economic to political to, um, I think we should just have lots of different options for sourcing and supply chain. So I just hope to share. So I think it's good for established sellers, but even new sellers. Maybe you're starting fresh with a new brand. Maybe you're looking for some inspiration. This can get you there. So established or even new sellers looking for some ideas of sourcing and supply chain from other
Excellent.
parts
I
of
agree.
Asia.
Yeah. I mean, supply chain experts have always had that phrase, right? Like the China plus one strategy. And then, I think it's also very important. We can, I can draw upon my experiences sourcing from China to kind of compare and contrast. And, we'll touch upon relationships with factories, overcoming packaging, branding challenges, mode selection, and even differentiating between different supply chains and also logistics as well. All right. So, Mike, I know you have a great presentation coming up. So, without further ado, would you like to share your screen?
Sure, will do. Thank you. Let me click that button. You can see the screen fine?
Looks good.
All right. All right, so let's jump in. We'll have it visually appealing as much as I can, big text, and but yeah, China plus one. I mean, honestly, I didn't really think about China plus one until I, myself had kind of gotten out of China in 2018, 19. I moved to Thailand then, and we're gonna just go through it. So yeah, like Gary already introduced me, but of course, I'm a content creator and community person, but I also, am a seller myself. I buy still in China to this day. This is a brand case study we built to sales to Satano. We're also building Excalibur Brothers. This brand is all made in China still. So I just want to say, and I don't want to get political. I don't want to like, say who, I know people are sensitive and it's business, right, Gary? Right? Like, I just think you should have some other alternatives and ideas. But especially
Yeah.
if my friends in China get sensitive sometimes when I discuss this, but I still do business in China. My wife is from China, and but yeah, I mean, we're gonna go through the mindset and what you had already said here. But how do you feel about that, Gary? Right? Like, just the
Yeah.
word China plus one. How do you feel
Well,
about
I,
that?
I think, coming from a supply chain background, I moved to Shanghai in 2008, and I was working with a consulting firm, helping sourcing with foreign suppliers. I did that for about 10 years. So, I mean, in the whole supply chain world, there's always been a China plus one strategy, right? I mean,
Oh,
whether
really?
it's,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, whether you're like, big corporation like Apple, Walmart, et cetera. China obviously is still the largest manufacturer in the world. But if you look at the macro policy shift in China, they were really, they were letting some of the cheaper stuff, like the lower complexity stuff, go to Southeast Asia because China is, gradually moving up the supply
Yeah.
chain. They want to, uh, feature more high quality products, and that's what we're seeing today. I mean, if you go to like your shoe store, right, or if you go to like clothing shop like Uniqlo, right, look at the label. You don't see made in
Yeah.
China as much as before. You're seeing more made in Vietnam, right? So like China
True.
actually, like, the more expensive clothes are starting to have made in China label, and the regular like cheaper clothes and shoes is made in Vietnam, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
like New Balance, for example, if you look at their shoe line, they have like their premium line is made in USA, right? That's the most expensive one,
Mm.
but like the mainstream one, they're mostly made in Vietnam. So China's kind of like
Got it.
in between now. So
Yeah.
coming back to this, I feel China plus one is not new. I mean, maybe in the Amazon FBA world where everyone immediately thought Alibaba to source. I mean, it's always been about China, but like in the broader supply chain, business world, it's always, there's always been a China plus one. And it's interesting, like Thailand could be that one. So that's why, I wanted to invite you on to dig more into that.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks for that, Gary. So this next slide is China is easier. I never thought I would say that. I'm of course China is not so easy still, but I think compared to other Southeast Asia places, it's more they especially for Amazon sellers. I think I'll hopefully cover it in my. There's so much to cover, but Thailand, they have no clue how to do FBA prep. They have no idea how to make the cartons. One mistake I made in Thailand is I didn't tell them about the sizing requirements of the cartons. So they had to like order new I didn't want to have oversized cartons, right? Like they, so China, a lot of factories understand about making products for FBA, packaging, prepping, carton sizes. But, like you said, like the mindset is, I call it like hedging, right? Like actually, I don't know if you know that, Gary. I worked on Wall Street for almost 5 years while I was selling
Yeah,
online.
yeah, yeah.
And,
You're a Wall Street like
hedging,
banker, right?
yeah, I was on the trading side. Banking and
Yeah.
investment banking is a little bit different. I was on the junk bond trading floor. It was like like a little bit like Wolf of Wall Street in a way,
Mm,
but
mm,
not that crazy, but in
yeah.
that area. But basically, the word hedge comes, I always think of hedge as like stock trading or, like Wall Street, but hedging is true. Like I think in supply chain, you got to hedge your risk, you got to hedge your business. And a lot of times people call it like multi-channel sales side, right? A lot of people say Amazon and like Shopify or Amazon and Etsy, but I think maybe also on the supply chain side, you should think like China plus one, right? Is a hedge. It's like a hedge in case Donald Trump gets reelected and goes nuts with trade wars again or something, right? You gotta kind of have as diversification is another way of saying hedging, right? Diversifying. Of course, it makes it harder, right? It's harder. It's not easier, but it's also more valuable because it's harder, right? Anything easy is not as valuable as something that is harder. So, but again, on the other side, we're in the mindset stage of this presentation. The mindset is you don't want to totally like rip your whole engine out of your car, right? And take all the pieces apart on the driveway of your garage and then try to put the engine back, right? You kind of got to take one piece. So like what I'll say in this presentation, and maybe try one product out of China, right? But keep your current products that are selling, if you're a current seller, you don't try to replace your whole supply chain. You got to experiment. You got to kind of transition. You got to like take one product or maybe add a new product in another country, right? It's too risky to try to disrupt your current supply chain and your whole business to switch to another supply chain. Even just switching factories within China is risky. I've done it. I don't know if you've done it, Gary, but even switching a factory, an existing factory within China is scary. Even if you can save money, it's a business risk even within the same country. So, I wouldn't recommend after this presentation, like totally like resourcing your whole product line in another country. Try to do one product I think, I don't know if you have an opinion, Gary, but maybe a new product, right? Like, I don't think you should try to and then once you're comfortable with that supply chain, with that factory, maybe then you can expand out to try to replace some of your existing product supply chain.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like, I mean, I would pay attention to what Mike is doing in terms of, let's say, the products, and if there's any particular categories or, types of products
Yeah, we'll talk
that
about
Thailand
categories.
is strong in. And then,
Yep,
because obviously no single country can replace like the breadth of product selection or the depth of China, right? But there could be certain opportunities that you start with first, or maybe it's, certain things are like cost prohibitive. Start with those. But yeah, I agree with Mike. Like, don't try to replace the whole thing, because that could be very disruptive to your supply chain, and you
exactly.
don't want to cut it off and go out of stock while the new country is trying to go up to speed.
Yeah, so let's dive into sourcing, but I think there's a lot of similarities. I think one of my mistakes, Gary, when I was first buying from China when I was in New York at Wall Street, I had no clue what I was doing. Specification documents. You're going to need that if you buy from China, India, Thailand, USA, Mexico, like your blueprint, right? You need to know your product. You can't really delegate that to the factory. I used to think I could just have the factory know what I want and make my spec doc, but I think that's your responsibility as the buyer. I know these weird things as a seller or the buyer, but as a buyer from the factory, you should know what you want. And then you can send that. I've reused my spec docs in China and in Thailand, right? So you got to make a spec doc. So it's basically the fundamentals are the same. We're going to go through this. And it's also knowing what you don't want, especially with like reading negative reviews on Amazon. What do they not like? A little bit of a case study. I'm doing some dried grass in Thailand now, and a lot of it's sold in Chinese sellers and it's made in China, but they also have dried grass in Thailand. So I'm reading the reviews and people are complaining about the size. They're complaining about certain quality elements. So knowing what, you don't want, right? As well as what you want. And then, this
What do
is
you mean
pretty,
by dried grass, Mike? Sorry, I'm curious. What is that for?
like dried flowers, maybe is another way, but like,
Okay.
the Gladiator
So
movie where he's walking in Rome and he's putting his hands through those long, the like boho grass, like the
yeah.
grass decor you put
So
in
for
a
like
vase,
so for like
like
decorations, like home decor, stuff like that.
yeah, home decor.
Okay. Okay.
So
Yeah.
so this is a pretty complex sheet. This is more sometimes I share about sorting some product selection. This I won't get in detail, but of course making some kind of a spec doc list. Of course, most of us use Google Docs, Google Sheets. This is kind of one strategy I do where I'm choosing a product and then I have an analysis sheet. We can give the slides and the recording, but this is just kind of going through competitors. But one thing I noticed is so the dry grass was we can stick with that. Please don't copy me anyone watching,
Mhm.
but I keep it real. But this slide's not related to that. But of course, I look at the competitors, I look at where they're sourcing from. In the dry grass category, a lot are China products from South China, like Yunnan, but they
Mm.
also have it in Thailand, right? Southeast Asia is similar to Yunnan.
Mm.
So I found
Yeah.
this also here.
Mm.
And then this is, like I mentioned earlier, your blueprint, your Google. I just make a Google Doc. I don't know, maybe probably Gary, you have a better documents that you use but I just
So
make a simple Google
Google
Doc.
Docs is great. I mean, just keep it simple, right? Yeah, I use Google
Yeah.
Docs too. Mhm.
So, I make headlines and I go through and I share it. But this is what I think this is good, a little bit 101 maybe, but this is kind of what you need whether you're doing Thailand or China, right? And then of course pictures. So one of the advantages I learned sourcing from China is I've learned to communicate without words because unfortunately I'm embarrassed to say my Chinese still isn't so good, but when I just show arrows and pictures. So it works in Thailand too, because they don't speak Chinese, they don't speak English. Well, some of them speak English, but a lot of factories don't speak English in Thailand either. So having pictures and showing what you want, showing what you don't want is good. So, I just like to cover that. I always, whenever I talk about sourcing, Gary, I always say you got to know what you want. You can't expect the factory to know what you want. So it's still your responsibility to know what you want before you start to look for it. So of course, online, there's not as much in Thailand. There are some, but I don't even want to recommend them. You can, of course, Google search like Thailand manufacturers, and there's some, I think the Thailand government has made them, but they don't reply to me, Gary. So I don't even want to recommend them. But of course, you could try those. But to be honest, we use Facebook, Gary. We use Facebook groups.
Mm.
I do have a Thai assistant that helps me. I am here, so I guess I do have an advantage by being here, of course. But she's not like going there or going to places. She's searching Facebook groups by keywords.
Which groups? Which groups?
That's a great question. I should say more pages. She's first searching Facebook in Thai language by the keyword of the products, and the factories are in maybe I was wrong to say groups. They're Thai language Facebook profiles, like even sometimes personal accounts or pages that are listing they're just taking. So back to the dried grass, we buy from farmers, dude. We buy different types from different farmers because it's like a mixed bouquet. So we buy some of it from one farmer, buy some of it from another farmer, and they don't have a website. They don't use those Thai government directories, or they don't reply if they're there. They're on Facebook. And she's literally like contacting their Facebook page or personal, even they sometimes make a personal account with their factory name or their product name, all in Thai though, no English. They're not, and just engaging with them. And the farmers are very, very local. So we'll talk about this in a bit, but especially in Thailand, I think it's somewhat similar to India, but it's handicrafts, it's handmade, it's grown, naturally grown products or animal products or like grass, flowers, jewelry, handmade jewelry. So there are some trade shows. I went to a mega show here. I think maybe you saw that, Gary. It was in the summer here in July in Bangkok. But the crazy thing was it was still like 70% Chinese factories that went. In my back of the envelope math. And it was nowhere as big as China, like Canton or Hong Kong trade global sources. It was one big room. But I did.
Would you recommend people go to something like that in Bangkok, the trade show?
So I had some other seller friends go, and maybe it was the first. I think they're just starting it because Mega Show is a Hong Kong company. And it's a Hong Kong Expo company that does it in Hong Kong. They're not as popular maybe as Canton Fair or Global Sources, but they are there. So I think they're getting it started. It just depends, but I wish there was more Thailand factories. It was like 20% Thailand, and it was like maybe five. There was some Pakistan, India, but it was mostly mainland China. It was almost like they're targeting people in Thailand to buy from China, but it goes back. I think I'll talk about it later, but Thailand factories are not as hungry for customers. We're working on building an expo. We're starting an expo. I mentioned before the recording. We're going to, at our summit this year, which is about a month from today, actually, is going to be the first one we're trying. But we're reaching out to these factories, and they're not as interested to have a booth. I mean, I have some various reasons, and I'll cover it more. But so I would say online sourcing is probably more effective than trade shows. But of course, trade shows are nice because you can see multiple people at one shot, right? And meet them face to face. And they're not as organized. I still don't, this is a quotation I blurred out from China factory, right? But China will give you like a quote like this. But in Thailand, I've not gotten a quote like this, except from a packaging supplier. But besides the packaging suppliers, I've gotten quotes more just like in a line chat, Facebook message, maybe email, but they're not making these clear quotes to us. They're giving us just prices. This is actually very nice. This is from a Chinese supplier we work with, but in Thailand, you're not, at least in my experience, I'm not getting these. And there's I think it's more Shenzhen Jiasu, I think. I'm forgetting my Chinese, but the speed of China is hard to beat anywhere in the world. This is a picture of me in Shenzhen leather supplier, but they're just so much faster in China. They have like a sales team, like the woman next to me, speaks good English, is like dedicated to sales, not doing anything else but just talking to potential clients or current clients. In Thailand, you don't really have that. They're the few suppliers I've been buying from are like family-owned factories. So back to the flower dried flower, dried grass. We buy from farmers. We send to an assembly factory that also does dried grass. And the father and mother are traditional factory people from like the 70s or 80s. And their son went to school in Chicago, USA, and came back and is helping the family business. Same with another one, does wood. Another factory is wood. Common wood in northern Thailand is wood. So they're like a wood factory, and the daughter is, I think in her 20s, maybe early 30s, and she speaks English. And I've met them. We haven't done business with them, but it's a family. And then she just straight up says, my mom says no, or my mom says, like in a line group in Thai to our assistant Snook, my mom, she just says, oh, my dad doesn't want, it's like we're talking to this family, it's like, oh, my dad doesn't agree, or it's like that,
How much can you negotiate with that?
Oh, I think this slide's better for that, but
Okay.
the negotiation is not as flexible. They don't go high and expect you to bargain. They give you a price. So back to the wood factory. The wood factory, I don't speak to them anymore. They're offended by me. I bargained
Why?
with them.
Really?
With them.
Okay.
There was also they were pretty surprised because I did meet them actually at a market. They're in a market here. And I just walked into their factory and just was talking to them. Actually, Luciano, my partner, Scalper Brothers, was here, and we were just talking to them. They didn't charge me for a sample. So I got like a wood cutlery set made to order based on a sample that I was brought to them. So they made a sample and they gave us a price, but they didn't charge us anything. And then their price was 100 baht, which is like 3 something US for the set. But we were seeing it even in Thailand market, and sometimes even cheaper in China, around half the price. So when we bargained, and then I said to her in this line group, I said to her, the daughter, I said, well, I don't want to I wanted to say, like, we found it for like 60, you're charging us 100 baht. What's wrong? And then maybe we caught her. Maybe they were just outsourcing it to another factory and marking it up, because I think that's what really happened. They of course don't want to admit that. Maybe that was, we found their other factory. Maybe it was, I feel a little bit bad. Maybe it was my fault because I should have given them my target price at the beginning, or but they never charged me for a sample. Then they came back and say, oh, you got to pay us for the sample. We also bought special machinery. We really thought you were going to buy from us. And I don't want to be like some foreigner taking advantage of local business people. So I said, of course I can pay you for the sample. We paid, I don't know, $40 US after the fact, when we weren't even going to buy from him. And then she comes back again. She says, oh, my mom also said we had to buy a special machine. That's another $80. And I was we already, it's like it's like WeChat, right? It's like, but it's Thailand style. Like, it's like we transferred it on a mobile app to her. And then she's asking for another $80 when we already were probably not going to buy from, we weren't going to buy from them anywhere because their price was like, so they got kind of offended. We didn't want to pay the additional 80 for the machine that they had to buy. So this is an example. And they really just gave us maybe they went down to 90, maybe, but they said, oh, we're not going to make much money on it. And
Okay.
They don't.
Okay.
So that was, I've noticed that with a few of these, they don't go high and bargain. Like, it's not like Chinatown where they give you like, even, I don't know, even China, I don't know. But I feel like they just are a little bit more.
Is the culture different?
I mean, like, sensitive. Yeah, it's a cultural difference.
It's cultural.
They're definitely more. They get more offended. They get if you bargain with them, they get offended, and then they.
This is no way like proper market research, but I spent time living in Thailand, in like Bangkok and Chiang Mai, and I would go to like the night market, right? And I would always bargain with those guys, and I don't think they got that offended, or I mean, maybe that's a different experience. Yeah,
maybe it's different.
I don't know.
Maybe it's also because I try to not. What I've been doing lately is I have her name's Snook on our team. She's Thai.
Yeah.
I try not to really show my face because I think it's maybe like China is or used to be, I think my price gets higher to me as a foreigner,
Mm,
and they kind of get in their head they can make more money from me. I really feel
mm,
like that, and it's
okay.
more B to B, but it's
Yeah,
happened at
I
least
see.
2 or 3 times. But that
Okay.
wood factory is a
Okay.
more extreme one.
Yeah, I see.
But
Okay. Okay. Okay.
but
I guess
yeah,
okay, I just remember something is like the Thailand, the tuk-tuk
yeah,
analogy. Like,
those
you know, the
guys are
tuk-tuk drivers,
those
they
guys rip
obviously
you
want to
off.
rip off all of the
They
foreigners,
rip
right?
off everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would always bargain with those guys. And you know, they'll take a little, you know, maybe like $1 or something off, right? But you know, I guess but that's not representative of typical like Thai negotiation culture, right?
Yeah, I think they're more used to working with foreigners
Yeah.
and they go high. But the
Yeah.
factories, and I'm targeting mostly northern Thailand.
Mm,
But we did talk to some Bangkok ones. And then
yeah.
when you try to bargain, they also say like, oh, we're not as they also say like, because I'll sometimes say I buy from China now, but I want to buy from Thailand. I'll kind of say that,
Hmm.
you know. And then they'll usually say, oh, maybe our price is not as competitive, but our quality is good. They're not trying to kind of be the cheapest. Generally,
Yeah.
they try to say they
Yeah.
got quality. So even this wood factory, she says that they had
Mm,
really worked on making it the best. It looked the same to me, but and the material is the same. But okay, and what next slide here is the
okay.
types of products.
Hmm.
And I still feel like, yeah, of course, like you said, China's the world's factory, still is. You can get anything you need there, even if it's not really their core, that China can make it, even if it's not their main product. But I would still say electronics and plastics, injection mold plastics, hard to kind of beat. Um, Essentially, I think you want to get some advantages outside of China, usually with like naturally grown, like I said, or handmade. I think, of course, China's so massive and there is inner China, but generally labor is lower now in Southeast Asia than China, generally, at least on the coastal Chinese coastal cities. So if you have something that's like using a lot of manual labor that's naturally grown, those are more advantages in Thailand. But I will say, maybe Vietnam might be a little bit more if you want to be more China, similar to China. Vietnam seems to be the place. I'm not as experienced in Vietnam, but I think it's got a big land border with China, and there's a lot of Chinese factories that also have Vietnam factories. I think I'd talk about that. But yeah, as I was saying, Thailand manufacturing is the human labor. The salaries can be much lower here. There's a lot that are willing to work for less. That's how you can save on the price. And like I said, the farmers are up in the mountains catching the grass and the flowers and bundling it, and they'll bring it here and deliver it for like there's also we also have some handmade jewelry. I'm involved with the brand that's made up 4 hours from Chiang Mai by car, and it's women handmade jewelry. And what they do, and I think I've heard similar stories. Megala's our India person. She says they also have a lot of these kind of like groups. They make it at their houses in a village, and then they bring it back to the headquarter factory, especially
Mm,
during COVID. Especially during
mm,
COVID. But the big one is in China. China, you'll see the machines. You'll see these injection mold machines. You'll see in Thailand factories and probably other parts of China, Southeast Asia. It's not like machines, it's people, right? And
yeah.
they're hand making stuff. That's kind
Yeah.
of what you'll see in here. So if your
Interesting.
product
You, yeah.
is
You know,
handmade,
just one story that I
yeah, go
like to
ahead.
share, sourcing from China, talking about what you said, like the families like bringing the stuff back to their homes to do because it's very labor intensive. I was sourcing a project for umbrellas, right? You know, just like, you know, typical rain umbrellas. And then there's a
Yeah,
city in Zhejiang. It's known as Umbrella City. Like literally when
yeah,
you walk down the block, it's just factory after factory after factory. And you would think this is like a very simple product, but actually it's not because the nuance of, you know, the mechanism that opens it, it's like three-dimensional, and then like the tension of the fabric and the sewing, it's still, at least at that time, maybe this was, I don't know, like 7 years ago. At that time, they couldn't do it like 100% machinery. And this is China, right? So they outsourced it to local, like, moms and I don't know,
Yeah.
aunties in their homes. And then they
Wow.
brought it back. I mean, there's bigger factories, the little ones, and they would do that. So
Interesting.
not that dissimilar from China, but obviously, it still exists, right? The human labor. I don't know now. Maybe now technology advances, it's fully automated, but at least at that time, that's what we were still seeing. Not too long.
No, I think you and I came to China about the same time. I came also very end of '07, more like '08. But
Yeah, yeah.
I I think a lot of us feel like Southeast Asia is China 10, 15 years ago.
Mm,
I could
mm,
I don't know. I think especially with the big push from the government about like the green and eco-friendly and
yeah,
everything, I think they've made much
yes.
more like um machines and optimized.
Exactly. I mean, China was already the world leader in like robots and automation technology, before I left China. This was like 2018, right? So I'm sure
Yeah.
now it's even bigger, right? Because and also like what you said, right? They want to like save energy, cut down on the pollution in China. That's like a big thing that affects like social stability. So yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
So another thing to think about is where your raw materials are coming from. Like so when I try to get the wood here, I haven't done wood products yet. I'm looking into it, but you try to not buy something that's sourced, but a lot of materials come from China. So like the jewelry I mentioned, the beads are from China, right? They tell me they buy it from the China like market in Bangkok, for example. Um, so a lot's already coming from China, not just the raw materials, but the molds. I think the molds are made in China, the injection molds. So they're heavy die cast metal that, like Gary's familiar. There's these big metal things that like come together and they put that hot
Yeah,
injection mold,
yeah,
plastic, and then it pops. That's made, from my experience, from in China and shipped into Thailand.
yeah.
So
China's the leader in that. Like even if you try to build something in the US, if you try to get that mold made in the US, it's like impossible. Like there's no proper engineers or equipment, even in, like advanced countries, because China, like
yeah,
everything was outsourced to China, like, decades ago.
yeah,
So there's really no country, as far as I'm aware of, that can compete unless you're going like really high tech and maybe, we're talking like semiconductors in Taiwan or something. But like for these type of products, I mean, that makes sense. Like China, they source it from China. Yeah.
yeah. So you should, there's something called the BOM, not a BOMB, but BOM, bill of materials. You should try to understand the materials in your product that you're sourcing, and you should try to understand what countries those raw materials are coming from. It really helps with negotiating, understanding price increases or maybe decreases, which never seems to happen to me, Gary. But increases,
Yeah.
you can try to understand where that increase is coming from. But if it's coming from China, you're kind of still dependent on China. You're still buying from China. And when that happens, usually your MOQs are higher because they have higher MOQs of the raw materials. So if they don't have that raw material in Thailand for other clients or other needs and they got to buy it, usually it's a higher minimum order quantity just for the raw materials that are imported from China or from third party, markets in Thailand. So that's why, I would suggest to try to find it that could be fully sourced from out if you can. And that's why like handmade or homegrown are more commonly found in Thailand, or clothes too. Um, but just keep this in mind. And that's why I think we talk about a spec sheet, talk about the BOM, bill of materials, try to really understand your product, understand all your components. Where is it coming from? Um, because that will help you on your sourcing. And then the biggest pain point is logistics. If I'm dealing with it right now, this dried grass, I didn't realize you had to it's not a policy of the US imports that I'm aware
Mhm.
of. It's the exports from Thailand, like fumigation and other things. It seems like a lot of these hiccups are solved in China exports already and are streamlined. But at least maybe it's my own inexperience because I'm still new to this, even though it's just been a couple of years. Um, I'm still learning myself. But the but that's one. It's just more man. It just seems like I'm pushing it more. Like in China, there's so much high turnover, so many shipments going. You can just catch all kinds, planes, boats, like fast boats, slow boats. In Thailand, there's no AGL. It means Amazon Global Logistics. I know in China, more and more sellers I know are trying to use AGL to save money and to go direct to Amazon. You can't do that as far as I'm aware from Thailand. Even the Thailand contacts at Amazon I know say that might not come in the long-term future, might not be either. The other is I'm up in the north. You mentioned I'm in Chiang Mai. I'm in the mountains. I'm like a 12-hour drive from Bangkok, which is by the ocean, or like a 1 hour, 2 hour flight. So if you're shipping by sea, you have to truck it that 12 hours down to Bangkok. There's only really one port in Thailand, is Bangkok. So Thailand is a pretty big country if you look it up on a map. I know it's nothing as like China or US, but so you have to get it down. If you want to send by ocean, you got to send it down to the south. That's why a lot of factories are in the south, like more traditional style factories, because they export. Just like China, right? Factories are on the coast by, Ningbo, Shanghai, Shenzhen. They're near the ocean for exporting.
What would be the Thai equivalents for those coastal cities that
I mean, I
factories
think
are in?
as far as I understand, it's just Bangkok. I mean, of course, there's a lot of these other they even
What
call
about
it
like
Bangkok.
Hua Hin and those
Yeah,
like
Hua
those
Hin.
sort of, yeah.
Yeah, Hua Hin. I have a factory in Hua Hin I do the bar products from. And
Mm,
but he has to truck it 4 hours to Bangkok, to the port of
yeah.
Bangkok
Yeah.
from Hua Hin.
Okay.
But it's not as bad
Right.
as 12 hours from Chiang Mai, right?
Right.
So most North Thailand sellers are doing air, or they're just budgeting the trucking. Of course, trucking is not expensive, in Thailand, but of course, it's also time, right? You got to get a truck and move it down to this port. But basically, it's all Bangkok. But yeah, Hua Hin. There's other ones nearby. They just seem to set up anywhere, and they just truck it to Bangkok. So
Mm,
they just, if a lot of the export based factories are just in that south rim, like 3-4 hours from Bangkok.
okay. Okay.
So then a lot of people are using air shipments, which is still not as cheap as China air to the US. It costs more. So you got to take that into account. Your logistics costs from Thailand will probably be more expensive than from China generally, whether it's air or sea. But hopefully you're making up for that with the price from the product and maybe some of the other advantages you can find. But I think Gary might be noticed this too. But a lot of Chinese are investing in Southeast Asia. They're more Vietnam, I think, than Thailand, but there definitely are Chinese-owned factories and supply chains in Thailand. When I mentioned that trade show in July I went to, they would have a little. It wasn't very professional, but it was like a scratched piece of paper with a black marker. We have Thailand factory, right? Because their booth would say China, but
Mm,
they put I feel like they noticed people were just passing them because they're looking for Thailand, or they
mm,
said we have Vietnam factory. I also saw that in April in the Canton Fair and Global Sources shows. I saw them
mm,
starting to write this. They weren't as prepared, but I feel like the factories are listening because they're saying, no, we're not just in China. A
mm,
lot of them are starting to say we have facilities in Vietnam or India or Thailand or other places. I think they're noticing that their
mm.
buyers are looking for China plus one. So it's another
Yeah.
strategy. Maybe you're buying, maybe you're buying from a Chinese factory. Maybe mention to them, do you have any options?
Yeah.
What's your plan? What's your China plus
Yeah.
one? Maybe it doesn't have to be you
Yeah.
as the Amazon seller. Maybe your factory is doing this already, because a lot of them are
Yeah.
doing this. So it might
Yeah.
be worth a
Yeah.
conversation to bring up to
That's
them.
right. That's right. And looking at the big corporations like Walmart's, internally, I know that the supply chain buyers were given directives to diversify away from China. So like the Walmart buyers would share with their Chinese manufacturers, hey, the bosses are telling us you gotta source X% out of China. What are you guys doing? Are you opening up a factory in Southeast Asia and Vietnam, etc.?
Yeah,
Right. So like the
that's
directive is
makes sense.
coming. And then the other thing is like we didn't touch upon is like the geopolitical risk, because China
Mm-hmm.
US tensions are probably lowest I've seen in our lifetimes, right? So I mean, if, God forbid something breaks out, like, war, etc., it makes sense to have like that geopolitical risk diversification. If you have like the factory in Thailand or Vietnam or India, etc., right? So that's another reason that you want to
Mhm.
diversify away. Yeah.
So yeah, we're getting towards wrapping to the end here, but so I think the general theme is, and of course I can ask some question, Gary. But basically China's of course still the world's factory. I still think to replace China or to be fully not dependent on China was 10, 15 years or more,
Yeah.
but there is more and more demand in Southeast Asia. I think just as you were mentioning, the Walmart buyers, the Apple buyer are they're definitely the China market knows there's this demand. So they're also adjusting. But I think we should be trying to be ahead of the curve a bit. My biggest point is, like I said at the beginning, I wouldn't just drop everything and resource, slowly move that over. But one other thing is one other tip is the MOQs might be high. Again, the trick is separating your packaging from your production, your products, because the packaging is higher. So like factories would tell me they need like 5,000 MOQ, 10,000 MOQ, and then we would find out this just because the packaging. Same within China. I learned that the hard way in China over the years. So just order the 5,000 packages and get the 1,000 units. Usually that works. A lot of times they don't separate that or they don't give you that tip,
Mm.
right? It's like the
Mm.
the logic, right, Gary? Like,
Yeah.
tell me
Yeah.
why you need 5,000. Okay, it's the packaging. So usually
Yeah.
that's hopefully a helpful tip for people. You can still get lower MOQs, but generally they'll give you higher MOQs. It also could be because of the raw materials.
Mm.
But yeah, it's a hedge. It's a protection, and maybe you could start a new brand. I know it's a lot of work to make a new brand. I don't want to tell everybody to start a whole new brand. You can of course keep your current brand and try to buy from say Thailand or other parts of Southeast Asia, but incorporate it into your story of your brand. Like the dry grass, I'm totally going to leverage on buying it from Thailand. I'm going to show the Thailand people making it. I'm going to show the story of little video of me in there. You'll see that. I think you got to leverage that because there's probably buyers that are looking for maybe Thailand or differentiating yourself from the China seller products. And then again, like in life, right? If I'm short, I'm not gonna play basketball, right? If I'm tall, I'll be good in basketball, but I might not be. You got to know what you're good at as a person,
Mm.
as your team, and leveraging it, right? Um, Also, I want to start to donate to some maybe you can also donate money to some of the local there's a lot of orphanages, there's a lot of
Mm.
poverty here. I think
Yeah.
a lot of other parts, maybe leveraging that. I don't want to say just for marketing, but it's also can really impact positively in your brand
Mm.
story to differentiate. Um, but I mean, just finding what, are you good at? Usually Western sellers or non-Chinese are better at branding or better at, the third-party marketing off Amazon marketing. Um, Maybe a lot of times the price might be more in Southeast Asia, even Vietnam. I think I'm hearing Vietnam is coming in cheaper than China, but Thailand is not always going to be the cheapest. But I've met a lot of factory owners that do it because the lifestyle and they want to kind of streamline their supply chain and live in Thailand, right? Like I kind of came
Mm.
here not for a truly business reason, for more of a lifestyle for my children or for
Mm.
myself, but I'm trying
Mm.
to find more business opportunities here. Also, a little plug for the summit, cross-border summit is in about a month from now, November, middle of November, 2023. Got some great people coming. It will be focused on the exporting from Asia or Amazon. Basically, we're bringing speakers from different parts of the world to share their strategies, of course, all in English. From China, from the Western worlds, like we have Danny from London coming in, your good friend Nick in Japan coming to share,
Mm.
Howard, the professor. We also have Amazon themselves coming, like Max from Bangkok will be there. Megla from India, it'll be great. Also some sourcing and experts that are doing their business from Thailand to learn from. So many more
And
than
Chris
this.
Rawlings is going to be there. He's one of the
Yeah,
sharpest
Chris,
dudes when it comes to
super smart.
PPC and AI as well. He's one of the thought leaders in
And his
AI for e-com.
first time to Thailand, he said I think he
Oh
had a
wow.
layover, but first time. Also
Okay.
first time for a few others. Danny's first time for
Chris used to live
Thailand.
in Shanghai. Like that's how we met. Chris and I.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He used to live in Shanghai as well. He had another business he was running. Yeah. But yeah, that's an
Yeah.
awesome lineup,
Yeah.
you know. How yeah,
Yeah.
how can people learn more to find and also you mentioned talking about Thailand, you had like a bonus, right? Like a bonus Thai trade show.
Yeah. So we're adding on the 15th an expo. It'll be a free add-on. So the core event is 16th and 17th for the full day of speakers and networking and after parties. But on the Wednesday, November 15th, we're going to start to experiment. This is our first time. We haven't done this in 4 years. We did this in China before. This is also moving out of China. But 2019 was last time. So we're adding a new expo. It might get bigger by the time it happens. We're adding booths. Factories are approaching us. But we have about 10 to 15 booths right now on the day before. We'll also add some like speed dating and networking there on
Speed
Wednesday.
dating? Like dating, physically dating?
Like business dating, like matchmaking. Because
Speed
we actually,
networking, you mean, right? So guys, you know, like if you're a family man, don't get like
yeah,
incriminated
true,
by that,
true.
man.
Yeah,
Speed networking. Speed networking.
speed networking. Yeah, we call
Yeah.
it the cross-border matchmaker. So the cross-border summits,
Yeah.
our event conference, and then cross-border matchmaker is going to be the expo. And but of course, the core event will be the 16th and 17th for these amazing speakers and networking. Small, relatively small, 100 person event. And we already are almost getting closer to capacity. There's still some spots open. We'd love to have some of the 7-figure seller community coming. So we made a special coupon code, the number 7 FSS for 10% off. And you can get this at crossbordersummit.com. Click on 2023. If you're curious, you can see our previous years. We archived all the previous years. We got great testimonials. It's a premium price event. We have a general entry and a VIP. But for sure, if you're an established seller, experienced seller, you're going to get some tips, hacks, networking, connections that will more than pay for the trip and the ticket. So I'll definitely work with you to make sure you get the most of it. So thanks,
And
Gary, for that.
if people, yeah, sorry, I know we're over time.
Go ahead.
I'm curious about the Thai trade show. Like how many booths will there be? Like are they mostly Thai manufacturers? Like what categories? Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. I could maybe, I don't know if I want to share it, but I'll open it.
Okay. Or you could just tell me
I'll just,
verbally. Just share with us verbally. That's
I'll
fine.
just read it off. I have a Google sheet here. So we've actually partnered with a local company for getting the suppliers, because I'm not Thai, and basically I'm reading it: clothing, tea, dried fruit, coconut snacks, wooden tableware, shop house coffee, coconut creamer, Thai spices, packaging, ceramics. So that's some of there's a couple of duplicates of those. So you have a couple of different choices of those.
Okay.
But that's kind of what's coming in.
Okay.
So yeah,
And
clothing.
how many booths will there be? How big is it?
So like I said, actually it's really shocking. I'll be honest, I keep it real, man. I'm not charging them. We're not charging them this year. We're hoping that they're happy so it's all free for attendees and booths.
Okay.
Of course, there might be some upsells for booths to try to support, but we're basically just doing this in good faith for the long term. But even
I mean like how many booths will there be? Are we talking like 20,
What I'm
50?
saying is we're having trouble getting some more to come, even when we give it to them for free. But 15 right now. 15.
15. Okay.
Which is, and this number's not a lot. And so some are like, they're just, I don't know if they're shy, they don't have English speakers. They might put their product, basically what we're trying to do is maybe we demo not demo, but put products on shelves for people to see with their contact. So it might not be their representatives there. Like I said, in some of the talks, it's in our talk today, they're not as hungry. It's crazy to get customers.
Maybe it's the culture. It's not like the
or maybe they're
Ma, like the
shy, or they don't know what
996 lifestyle, right?
they don't know what to expect, maybe. But yeah, we also are adding some other kind of services as well, so you can meet some services that are in the e-com space. um, to add to that.
Okay, I'm just I just have a couple rapid fire questions before we go, if that's
Yeah, go
okay.
ahead. Go ahead.
For people that are coming like logistically, going to Thailand for first time, like they're coming from the States, like, West Coast or East Coast, how do they get there? Are they flying from to Bangkok and go up to Chiang Mai? How does that work? How do they get there logistically?
Of course, it'll be easy. There is an international airport. I think it's CNX or just Chiang Mai, in their
Okay.
Expedia or whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, a lot of times because of COVID, there used to be more direct. There's less direct still,
Yeah.
but probably most likely you'll connect through Bangkok and then take like a
Okay.
1 hour flight up.
Yeah.
And but it's international airports. It's very
Okay.
convenient, and the event's like 20-minute drive. It's from the airport, and of course
Okay.
we can support people on that.
Yeah. Do you, besides the conference, what do you have for like the fun day, like, some cultural, like fun stuff? What do you guys
Yeah,
have planned?
yeah, yeah. So thanks for highlighting these. So we're adding so much to this. Like we're gonna have like a street market tour. There's all these night markets, not factories, but more just like food and gifts. They close the streets down on Saturday, so Saturday we're gonna do that. There's also going to be a factory tours. We have a few of those factories that will allow us on Sunday to take people to visit their factory. And also there's a factory market that we'll be doing as well. If you want to stick around, that will be on the 19th Sunday. So you could come as early as the 14th. There's some local ecom meetups we host on Tuesday, the 14th. So it's actually almost like a week, almost a week.
Mm,
If you can come as early as the 14th and join our community meetups, there's definitely at least one. We're starting to add more. It'll be kind of like a community meetup day.
yeah.
15th is the expo. If you do
Yeah.
choose the VIP ticket, you can get a half day mastermind and a dinner on that
Okay.
15th as well.
Okay.
And then the core event is Thursday, Friday, 16th, 17th. And then the day after is the 18th, which is additional workshops if you'd like. And then
Okay.
at night is a night market. And then
Okay.
Sunday is a full day of factories and trade markets.
Okay. That's cool. Are you gonna go to like the elephant sanctuary and, give the elephants a bath or anything like that? Like, in
Steve
the wild?
Selikoff's coming. He wants to do some meditation. He saw my post. I don't know if he saw my post. I did a meditation retreat here.
Okay. Okay.
The elephants, I have mixed. We could do some. Yeah, I mean, we could also add on some stuff. I'll be, of course, I live here. We could add in
Yeah.
even more.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, it
If
could be
enough people
because
are interested, we can help.
yeah, my family, we traveled to Chiang Mai. We lived in Chiang Mai for a while. And I remember, there's like, yeah, anyways, I don't want to monopolize the time on that. Uh, how can you source from Thailand if you don't know Thai?
Even globalsources.com, we have friends there. There's
Yeah.
English ones. They're just gonna be usually bigger factories. The same as in China, really. Honestly,
Yeah.
the same as in China, right? I mean, the small
Yeah.
factories have less English speaking people. So you're
Yeah.
gonna most likely be a little bit limited to those that have English speaking staff, but
Okay.
um
Are you using AI
but
and ChatGPT at all, like to communicate with your Thai suppliers? Or you have a Thai assistant, you don't use
I'm
it?
blessed with a great. I had to actually go through a couple, but I've so
Yeah.
far, knock on wood, Stoke has been great. So
Okay. Okay. That's
but
cool.
yeah, I'm sure you can get by that way. And then they can also translate. They'll probably be like surprised some English person's even contacting them. From
Yeah.
my understanding, a lot of these never don't sell to international buyers,
Yeah.
from
Okay.
my experience.
Okay. Excellent. All right. So I highly recommend you guys check it out, the Cross Border Summit, and we do have a special coupon code. Go to 2023.crossbordersummit.com, enter coupon code 7FSS to get 10% off. I am an affiliate of Mike's Cross Border Summit because I believe in it and I know the speakers and I'm confident this is a unique event and I don't think you can learn about this, like especially some of the stuff he's doing in Thailand from anywhere else. So definitely check that out.
Thanks. Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah. And last question is the dry grass brand. How did you come up with that? Was it like a supply driven decision to create this brand, or did you just have this idea the other way around?
It's an interesting one. It's not going to be, probably won't predict this answer, but I bought it on Flippa. I bought the brand.
You bought the brand,
Uh,
really? Oh, okay. Interesting.
I never see many Amazon brands on Flippa.com. You've heard of
Yeah.
that? Flippa. It's
Is
usually
that
like
like
affiliate
a
sites.
domain? Okay, affiliate sites. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean you
Okay.
can buy any website. I
Yeah.
actually I I don't want to say recommend, but if you want some inspiration of I usually get, actually it's a good hack to get marketing ideas because
Hmm.
usually affiliate sellers are selling their business and they explain how they get traffic and they say how
Mm,
they grew their, so I usually read it. I don't buy that much on it, but I get ideas from it. Because
interesting.
they show everything. But then I saw
Interesting.
this random guy selling his Amazon brand for like almost nothing, and it had inventory and a trademark, and it was grass. And then I even thought like maybe it was from China, but I was like, man, I could just mess around with this. It's like an experiment
Yeah.
to move it to Thailand. So
Interesting.
that's actually the story. It's not
Wow.
what you predict, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's very original. I'll have to check it out. So Flippa, check that out,
Yeah,
guys.
I would recommend getting ideas on there anyway.
Yeah.
It's gives I get a lot of inspiration on it.
Excellent. All right. Thanks so much, Mike. And just one more note. This episode is brought to you by 80/20 Sourcing. So this is the site that I created from back in the day. And I am helping a small group of sellers if they need to find a sourcing agent in China. I have a couple of trusted contacts that I've been working with for over a decade, but they may not be the right fit for everybody, but they do have some limited bandwidth. So if you're interested in exploring that, I have a sourcing request form. So go to 8020sourcing.com/sourcing dash request. Okay, we'll link it up below and fill it out, and we'll see if we can match make you to help you source quickly, add more products to your pipeline more quickly. Maybe you need some help there. All right. So Mike,
Yeah,
thanks again.
great stuff, man.
Good luck with the event, and thanks so much for
Thanks,
sharing
buddy.
about Thailand. And we'll speak to you soon. All right.
Yes, always appreciate it, Gary. Thank you for having me.
All right. Take care. Bye, everybody.